Welcome to the 224th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida, waiting for Hurricane Dorian. We don't know where she's going to come. He's going to come. She's going to come. I don't know if he's a he or a she, but it looks like it's aiming towards Florida for a little bit, that it's going to turn up. So we're going to have some wet, windy weather. I hope all of you in Florida and Georgia and north, where this thing is traveling, stay safe and dry. I hope you've got your hurricane supplies in, batteries and water, as well as your veggie stock. I went and got some beans and rice and potatoes. We'll probably have some burrito bowls. I've got plenty of greens on hand. I have collards out back, so I can harvest those as we need them. I even have some Mama Says fare in the freezer, so how about that? I just got my athlete's bundle. You should check it out. Millie's chili, lasagna, broccoli, the beet puree that I love so much, a tofu scramble. So lots of things in there to hold me over if need be and the power goes out. We'll probably make a sushi salad. We'll do some prep just as before the lights go out, so to speak, if it's going to come this way. That's usually what happens when the winds start to kick up. We get a little power outage, and so we don't know how long that's going to last. We have a couple generators, so we have gas on hand to run fans and keep our refrigerators going. Hopefully it won't last too long, so I hope it doesn't last too long for anybody listening as well. So stay safe, stay inside. One of the biggest things that happens to people if they go outside and either a tree branch falls on them or step on an electric line that's down, or try to use a chainsaw that they shouldn't be using, or get on the roof that they shouldn't be, climbing up a ladder that's in ill repair. So try not to pull any stupid human tricks with either the prep for Hurricane Dorian or the cleanup after. Be safe. Be plant-based. Be strong. So I thought this podcast episode I would actually share a book signing that I did. This past Tuesday, I was in Estero at a members clubhouse, Debbie Dendiger, along with Barbara Martino that lives in the area, and they had in some friends to their community clubhouse, and I did a book signing, and we did a Fiesta Bean chili tasting for them, as well as the pasta salad from the book tasting for them. Again, if you haven't got your book, head on over to our website to click on the link, or Amazon directly. Plant-Based Wellness Cookbook, 3 generations of cooking, the doctor, the dietitian, and the diva. So I brought the diva with me, and she and I answered questions and signed the book, and then we went on down to Naples Green Scene. And they had us down there for their a monthly meeting, which was a potluck this time. And I did a question and answer session and told them about the book. Now, we did a podcast not that long ago about the book, Addie and I. So there will be some repeat about how some of the things came to be. There are some new things. And then I opened it up to questions. Some of the questions are a little low for the recording to catch. I repeated most of them. Some of them you may not hear exactly. I apologize for the quality, but I think it's kind of fun to hear what goes on in a question and answer session. So I hope you do enjoy that. I appreciate the Naples Green Scene for having me down. They are not only a plant-based meetup group, but they are part of a Blue Zone community, and they're actually doing a lot of work in their area to try to get restaurants to comply with being whole food, plant-based, and oil, salt, or sugar when possible. They're educating the Naples area. They're working with the Lee County Health System to bring in speakers. So they're doing a really good job of educating the community on plant-based nutrition. So kudos to all of those people and all the hard work they're doing, and I love to be a part of it. And it was a great time. And so the diva and I spent the day on the road and then back in action. Our potluck, we had our own potluck today in nutrition, the level 3 nutrition class, and we had really good food. Lots of different very brightly colored green with from red cabbage and apple dishes to a forbidden rice dish to an Indian cleanse soup dish to a potato sauce. I mean, it was just on and on. A couple different kale salads. Lots of good food. The banana bread from the recipe or from the cookbook. So we had a good time, and we always have a discussion. When we have our potlucks, it's just not gather and eat, but we try to talk about some things. And one of the things we talked about was sugar. People, ask if things are sugar-free. And, one of the disheartening things when you do the research, whether it's white sugar, turbinate sugar, maple sugar, coconut sugar, it's all about the same 15 to 18 calories per teaspoon. There's not a whole lot of extra benefit. You might be able to get away with using a little less maple syrup. But calorie for calorie, it turns out to be about the same. The bottom line is, that's not a food that's going to provide us with the nutrients and antioxidants that we need. It's a sweetener. No matter what you call it, it's a sweetener. There is some evidence that it can add to some inflammation in the body, especially in the brain. So we want to use it to a minimal amount. So just because something doesn't have sugar, but it has maple syrup, or that it has coconut sugar, doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's a health food. It's a sweetener. So I always tell people use as little as you can, start out with half the dose, half of the amount that's recommended, and see what you can get away with. A lot of times using fruit in a recipe will let you get away with even less. And keep those kind of things for a special occasion. That shouldn't be on the menu on a daily basis. Because if you have to remember that our lifestyle diseases are from abundance, not from undernutrition. So we're not, cancer doesn't come from lack of nutrition. Diabetes doesn't come from lack of nutrition. Heart disease doesn't come from lack of nutrients. It's basically because we're over eating, a metabolic excess, metabolic waste that comes from consumption of too much of anything. So, the last thing I'll say is I used to tease people that I gave talks to that a manatee down here in Florida eats about 140 pounds of romaine a day at the Moat Marine Aquarium, and it weighs 1,500 pounds. So you can even overdo it on romaine. So without further ado, I am going to shift over to the Green Scene book signing. I hope you enjoy it. And stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you briefly after. It's great to be back in Naples. So this is certainly a beautiful setting, and the food smells amazing. I plan on going through with a spoon and cleaning up all the dishes So my plant-based journey started actually in the heart catheterization laboratory. I was getting ready to do a heart cath, and one of the skinny techs was standing there with a giant salad bowl in her arms, just shoveling it in. And I kind of looked up for, I went to undergrad in West Virginia, but I actually grew up in Morgantown, West Virginia, and I looked at her, and I said, and she says, "I'm vegan." And, did the head tilt. She says, "I don't eat any animals." And it's like, oh, that's weird, And she said, "You should read this book, A Diet for a New America by John Robbins." How many people read that book? Most everybody did, So it's Baskin and Robbins, the son, John Robbins. And so I read it, and it's like, oh, man, I didn't know anything about factory farming. I certainly didn't know that you could reverse all these diseases with plants, and animals are bad, bad for your health and the environment. So as soon as I finished the book, I was vegan. So I told my family, I said, okay, we're going to be vegan now, because I'm the doctor, and this is how we should do it. That didn't work out so well. And it took a few years, and I also have a terrible family history. My mom's mom died at 56 of heart disease and diabetes. Her dad died of a massive heart attack at 48. My other grandmother has diabetes. So if you want to have bad genes, you're looking at them, both of us. And so I thought, I'll start running so that I can outrun this disease. But you can't really outrun your cholesterol. It starts to keep creeping up on you. And if you're a doctor, you can go in the back room and take a statin if you want. And I actually did that for a little bit of time until I read this book by Dr. Diet for New America. But while I was out training for a marathon, I also heard an interview with Dr. Esselstyn about forks over knives. So I came home and I watched the movie, and it resonated with me in that he said, if you take time to explain to people what it is you're trying to have them do and the science behind plant-based nutrition, that you're going to be much more successful in getting people to change. And you need to spend time with people and understand that, that you are important and take time. And we've always taken time with our patients in the office, but this gave me an opportunity to try to incorporate this lifestyle disease prevention in the office. So we started a nutrition class in the back room. So I literally went to a garage sale, bought 16 chairs, got a card table, and started doing little quick food demos and then a whiteboard presentation. And we would make people pay up front because I figured if they didn't pay up front, they wouldn't show up. So I made them pay $175 for 6 sessions, and every other week for 6 visits we'd have a nutrition class. Crazy things started to happen. People's blood pressure started to go down, their cholesterol started to go down, the group started to lose weight, the diabetes went away. We were talking about diabetic neuropathy one night, and this guy, had that look, that you can see when the light bulb goes off above their head, and he's like, I haven't had any neuropathy pain in like 3 weeks. And it started to click. And so then we went from every other week to we started having class every week, and then we went to 2 classes back to back, and then we went to 3 classes, and then we got rid of the little room, and we went to an off-site place. And my only complaint and negative feedback was that when the class was over and people went back to their, cruises and visiting family, they would fall off the wagon, so to speak. And that if they just had something to make it a little bit, to kind of help tie it in a little longer. So we decided to actually change the practice to be focused completely on plant-based nutrition. So I went from a traditional cardiology referral practice to a membership-based practice. We cut down from 1,200 people to 50. We grandfathered in all our 9-year-olds, so they didn't have to pay anything. The rest of the people, we had a membership fee. And we've grown it from there, and everybody has the option of attending as many nutrition classes as they want. We now have 3 a week. We have yoga in the office. We have wellness challenges. There's a Facebook group. There's a members-only website. So it's not just about eating, but it's about moving. And so this month, we actually opened it up to the world this month to do the August Birthday Month Challenge. And we have people from all over the place logging their minutes of exercise every Monday. So we're having a movement challenge. But by doing these 3 nutrition classes, my mom started helping me. And her story is that she got lymphoma about 6 or 8 years ago. I don't remember the time frame of it at this point. My father actually had dementia. And so we, all of a sudden, I became the cook of the family. And so I was vegan at the time, so now everybody became plant-based because we didn't want to expose her with chemotherapy to all the bacteria that comes in with the meat that comes in from the store, and of course all the, everything that goes along with eating animal products. So she kind of came to be plant-based, kicking and screaming a little bit. But she did very well with her cancer treatment and stayed plant-based and started helping me with the nutrition course. And then I'd come home and she'd say, I whipped up something here today, why don't you try it? And I made this recipe and, why don't you try it? And so she became, this great Italian cook, now transformed into a plant-based cook. And the nutrition classes, we would cook, every nutrition class I would cook for people. And we have about 20 people in each class. And so we try these different recipes, and we would give them a handout. And the dietitian's story goes, my daughter, growing up around the medical profession, and she would go to the hospital with me when she was little and I was on call. And she always wanted to help people. But she was also very creative and fun-loving, and that doesn't, if there are any medical professions, we tend to be nerds and sit in chairs, and that just wasn't her scene. But anyway, she started on that path and then thought maybe she would do physical therapy, and that didn't fit. But meanwhile, she walked onto the rowing team at West Virginia University, and there was a dietitian assigned to the team. And Addie had always struggled with her weight, even being an athlete. And she really clicked with this registered dietitian, and she was vegan at the time, but more of a junk food vegan. And that's kind of how her path came with all of a sudden when she became a whole food plant-based athlete. Her athletic performance improved, and then she understood what she wanted to do. So she became a plant-based registered dietitian, and now is part of the practice as well. So our members have access to a registered dietitian as often as they want. She also helps with the wellness because her undergrad, not only, she picked up several along the way, but one of them is exercise physiology. So we do wellness challenges and different things, and movement for our members as well. But we have all these recipes, and when we would, part of the nutrition classes, we go to grocery shopping together. So once every 6 weeks, we all meet at Publix, whoever wants to, and we go through the grocery store and talk about food, everybody's favorite pastime. And, what do you make with this? What do you make with that? How do you do this? And everybody would be writing down different recipes that I would spout off, and they said, you got to make a cookbook. I was like, yeah, sure, we should do a cookbook. We have all these recipes, we'll just throw them together, take a bunch of pictures. How long can it take? Not long at all. So I said, hey, we should do it. She's like, yeah, that'd be great. So I said, you take the pictures, and I'll send you all the recipes, and we'll put it together, and, we'll be able to whip this thing out pretty quick. Well, I sent all my pieces of paper, and then we're all, jumbled together. She's like, this is a mess. This is just a disorganized mess, and we would fight, and then we put it back, we fight, put it back, and, and then finally we, get together, and then the diva here, the other problem we have is that we're all cooks that just put things in. So country cook, so to speak. A little of this, a little of that, So she would make this great soup, and I'd say, what's in it? We need to know for the cookbook. And she's like, oh, God, I can't remember. So she, we have to make it again, and it's like, now think about it, write it down. So she gave me the scrap of paper, at dinner time, and this is what's in it. So we had to, of course, I was like, this is not organized, and so we have to get all these recipes down and get them. And so finally we, got the recipes and got the pictures, and, we thought that would be, we'll self-publish, that'll be easy because Amazon says you just upload it and out pops a book. And so, it's like when you start reading something, I think this is, a lot more complicated. Somehow we have to get these pictures to go into this document, and then, they want the pictures in this format, and they want the, so. Luckily, we have a great graphics guy up in Port Charlotte, and, we kind of took the whole thing to him. It's like, can you put this together for us? And so a book was finally created. But we kept thinking, we're going to have it. And the funny part, one of the funny stories is when it finally came out, we got the author's copy, and I sent one to myself and one to Addie. She's in Houston now. And I got it and I panicked. I really panicked. It's like, we just can't ever let anybody see this. We just have to, because I just don't think I can stand the negative feedback. We just keep it in the house. We did it. We won't need to tell anybody. And I said, as soon as you get yours, look at it. And she's like, I don't see it. It looks pretty good. I think it's all right, But we were just, this panic that to share your work with, the world and open yourself up for criticism. And when people would start looking at it and say, we like it, it's like, really? And then we, it was exciting. We started making our own recipes. And when they would turn out, we said, it worked. Because we'd never used a cookbook before. We just threw things together, and it's like, wow, you can really follow the directions here, and it still comes out. So it was pretty exciting. The very first recipe in the book is a dedication to my grandmother, Addie Dulaney, who Addie is named after. My grandmother, she had diabetes, and she died of a massive heart attack, and was one of the reasons why I became a cardiologist. It's kind of how things all go together is interesting when you look back on you look back on your life. How they say it's 2020. I remember as a child riding in the back of the car as we would take my mother's mother to the hospital in diabetic ketoacidosis and in heart failure. And that back in the day you could actually dump a kid in the waiting room and leave them for hours and nobody would steal them or do anything bad with the kid or anything. But I would stay there while they would take care of my grandmother, and then early in the morning they would pick me up and we would go back to go to school or whatever. So I remember that vividly, riding in the car and how she sounded when she was gasping for her breath. And so that certainly played a role in me going to medical school. And then my other grandmother, who I spent a lot of time with, again having a massive heart attack. And her symptom was I just had this terrible indigestion, if I could only belch. And that I took that with me through all of my medical school and in practice. Just had this heaviness. If I could just belch, she said she would be okay. And obviously that wasn't the case. But she was a great Irish cook, and she made this very dense, which she called salt rising bread. And it's made out of fermenting potatoes. And the broth, or the ferment off of that potato broth you use, and you thicken that with flour, and then make this bread. It takes about 48 hours. Now, her recipe uses lard and butter. Lard and milk, whole milk. So I wanted desperately to put this recipe in the cookbook, but I couldn't in good conscience put lard in the plant-based wellness cookbook. So I said, if I can make this recipe without any oil, and we use soy milk instead of cow's milk, and if it works, then the recipe goes in. And again, my biggest supporter said, "No, it never worked." And and the bread is very tedious because the temperature and the humidity. If anybody's tried to do a sourdough bread, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The temperature has to be just right. And Barbara Martina back there, she made the bread, and she actually texted me. She's like, "It looks like this. What do I do now?"
That's in the book.
It's in the book. It's in the first page. Yeah. So and the recipe makes 5 loaves. And it freezes very nice, and it stays in the refrigerator very nice. So it is a lot of work, but you have a lot of bread afterwards, and it's great toasted. So, if anybody is hardy enough to try, do the bread, then email and say, "I did it." Because I think my grandmother would be, really, really proud to know that she, made it into a cookbook, and that this bread has made it as far as it has come. But anyway, so that's how that bread came. And just as a nuance, anytime there's oil in bread, it's just to give it shelf life. It has nothing to do with the actual process of making bread. So, if we make pizza dough, the pizza crust recipe in there, it doesn't have any oil in it, works just fine. If you're gluten-free, we have a polenta crust you can use as a pizza crust that's really good. Because a lot of times, you get this marketing thing, they'll say, "Oh, use a cauliflower." People that are gluten-free, they get teased with like a cauliflower crust. And I don't know if most of you know, they put mozzarella cheese and eggs in cauliflower crust. So it can be a really, there's cauliflower, that's good, but then you have, 6 other nasty ingredients. So we have options there so most of the recipes can be made gluten-free, and a lot of them are. And they've just been favorites of the class, of our nutrition students and members. And like I said, we actually make recipes out of there and say, "Oh, that's pretty good." The green dot, the diva here is responsible for most of the soups. And, the green soup, if we don't have bok choy, we'll use collards or mustard green, so it's fun. The cookbook is easy to get the food on the table. It's about most of the recipes you get completed in 30 minutes or less. But there's also a lot of room to make them your own, which is the way cooking should be. It should be fun. You shouldn't stress over it. We've had patients come to the office, and they're almost in tears carrying 5 or 6 cookbooks with them because they're trying to make some complicated recipe every night. And most of you probably have been through that. When I first went vegan after John Robbins, I thought, well, I'm not going to be just a vegan, I'm going to be a raw vegan. And so I bought Matthew Kenny's, 500-page Bible of raw cooking, and of course I skimmed it, so I didn't realize, that you had to, dehydrate and soak and, 48 hours and all this kind of stuff. So, I think the first thing I ever made, it took me 3 days to get on the table, and it really wasn't worth it. I had a dog with me. So, obviously I failed my first round. So things have to, be fairly simple, and you can't stress over it, especially if you have a job and you're coming home and people are waiting to eat. You want to get food on the table. I like to repurpose leftovers, so we take the soup and you can put it over a baked potato or put it over polenta. So there's different ways to repurpose things. And it just makes life simple. You shouldn't have to, we wanted pictures so that you can eat with your eyes first. If I look at a cookbook and the recipes look good, I'm more apt to make them than, just think about, well, maybe, because some things just don't sound good, first off, but if you see a picture, it's like, yeah, maybe, I'll give it a try. So that really, pretty much sums up our little cookbook. I was certainly glad when it came out and it was over. We didn't have to, do any more proofreading because I was, I guess a little background me, I'm the first person in my family to go to medical school. And I didn't tell anybody because I didn't figure I'd get in. So I thought, I don't know any, I always heard you had to know somebody to get into medical school. So I figured, well, if I show people I have a work ethic, maybe then that'll help me get into medical school. So I thought to get my undergrad degree in 3 years so that I look like I have a work ethic. And I decided to get in chemistry because I heard that the biology teachers were mean and they hated pre-med students. So that was my whole plan for getting into medical school. So I didn't take much English, the bare minimum. And I grew up in West Virginia, and I'll make that joke first so you don't have to. So, so English was kind of my second language. So when I started doing this book and proofreading and going through things, it was really, it's like I was told never to write anything, So it was a little bit scary. What I like to do now is open it up to any questions anybody might have. And you can throw anything you want to me. You can ask about the cookbook, or you can ask about anything you want within reason, except English, because that's just my favorite. Yes.
I love the Let's Go vegetable soup. One of the ingredients is 2 boxes of diced tomatoes. What's a box of tomatoes?
A box of we try to avoid salt. And a lot of times, if you buy canned tomatoes, they're packaged with salt as a preservative. But palmy tomatoes, we're one of the first boxes of tomatoes, and they're right in Publix on the top shelf with all the other tomatoes, but they're just tomatoes. So there's no added salt. If people say, they come in the office all the time and they'll say, I don't need any salt. Well, if you eat mustard, you eat salt. If you have soy sauce, you get salt. All these different things can cause add up to a whole lot of salt. But if you just eat fresh fruits and vegetables, you get 700 to 800 milligrams of salt just in the fresh fruits and vegetables. So if you're trying to follow a diet that's American Heart Association recommended 1,500 milligrams of salt or less a day, that only leaves you about 700 or 800 milligrams. So if your tomatoes have 600 milligrams in them, you've already, game over. And so things add up really quick. So we use that box as a reference. And now a lot of different companies make the no added salt tomatoes, but that box is a safety for a lot of our members, and that's kind of how it came. But you can use fresh tomatoes. Those are the best, obviously. But again, we try to avoid using specific products, especially that contain a lot of salt. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't the best kind of vegetables and plants local grown versus, you were saying you go to Publix, okay? So you buy fresh, right? Not a lot of canned or frozen if you can. So when I go to the store, I notice in Florida they have things that come from, far away, like California and kind of far. So I try to find things that are local, that are locally grown. And are you also a proponent of just pretty much, I just eat organic 90% of the time, if I can. You can't always get everything organic, but do you feel that that's important as well? And also to take your clients to the farms, the local farmers markets, and buy the local grown. Because I'm told that a lot of the markets here, if they don't say organic, a lot of them are, I don't know where they get their stuff from. They look pretty. Everything looks pretty and plump, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily the best. So organic and also local and farm-raised stuff.
Right. If anybody's had a backyard garden, it doesn't really look like the perfect tomatoes that we see in the grocery store. So yes, we go to Publix because it is, and we also go to actually a local organic market. Well, it's mostly organic market, but it's a vegetable market. So we go both places. But we go to Publix mainly because we have a big open space and we do have a lot of vegetables to choose from.
if I can buy organic, I do buy organic. It's good for you, it's good for the farmer, it's good for the environment. If you can go to a local farmer's market, sometimes local farmers don't have the money to become organically certified, but if you talk to them, maybe they don't use pesticides and grow things. So talking to your local farmer is a good way to get pesticide-free grown food. But then it comes down to it. I look at the produce. If the organic Swiss chard is all wilty, and I'm still eating lower on the food chain. Most toxins are stored in the fat of something. So it's the fat of the animal. So if an animal eats non-organic food with pesticides and genetically modified soybeans and corn, and also that animal stores those toxins, or if it's a fish and it swims in mercury, PCB, and dioxin infested waters, which all fish do, then it stores those toxins in the fat. And so when we eat the animal and we eat the fat, and you can't not eat the fat because you can't cut it out, it's in the muscle fiber, you're getting everything that animal ever ate in its life. So when you're eating plants, you're eating lower on the food chain. You're eating, so if a cow had to eat, how many tons of, even if it ate, whatever, you're still eating lower on the food chain. So your pesticide exposure, and because plants don't have a lot of fat, they don't store a lot of the toxins. So most of them can be washed off. But so yes, buy organics, good for the environment, good for the farmers. If you can grow your own, do it. We have a tower garden. In our lanai, we grow peppers and lettuce and our herbs. We have raised beds in our backyard. We have fruit trees, so we do grow a fair amount of some of our produce. But it's not easy. If anybody's tried to grow organic, you have to plant enough for the bugs and the birds and the other things, so to go around. But I think so. If you can eat local and you can eat organic, that's number one.
Can I just add something?
Yes.
So we have, for our Perks program, Food and Thought is on board with us. So if you're a member of the Naples Green Scene, you get 10% off groceries. And everything in Food and Thought is, I won't say all local, but all organic and all non-GMO. So there's no guessing. You go in, you get everything and anything you need, and you know what's there. So they're on our website. You can click on their site, and there's always specials. And
yeah, the Sprouts right up the street here.
I haven't been to Sprouts.
Yeah, I mean Sprouts is a great market. A lot of organic options.
Good prices too.
And really good prices. As far as we talked about no salt, but there is they have salt-free, BPA-free cans there at 99 cents, which is great if you don't want to cook your own beans. So yeah, Sprouts is a really good deal for the price-conscious shopper, and a lot of good organic produce. So that's another good place. Yes?
What are your feelings about lectins? Do you feel it's hype, or do you feel this is something?
I feel it's hype. Lectins. And beans and things. So it's particularly beans is the key for inflammatory and cancer causing. So if you're going to eat raw beans, if you can chew a bean, then you might get some more lectins. But the reality of it is, if soak your beans and then you cook your beans, and most of those lectins or any kind of harmful chemical product is gone and cooked out of it. I always refer to the blue. You guys are a blue zone. And I always look to the blue zones when it comes down to the final debate on if something is healthy or not. If you go to outside of this room, people will say, well, there's not enough randomized controlled placebo trials on this vegetable, or whether this helps this or not. And you plant-based people, it's not. You haven't proven anything, even though we have multiple studies. But it's not good enough. There are not 50,000 people, and we didn't have people smoke, and then people eat kale, and so does it? Is it really true? But if you look at the test of time in the blue zones, these people are 100 years old, and they one thing that they all have in common is they eat beans.
What about tomatoes and eggplants?
And they eat eggplants, and they eat tomatoes, and so nightshades. It's really there are people who are allergic to different things, but there's so many good things in a tomato, lycopene and vitamin C and antioxidants, and so the test of time has been people have been eating tomatoes and they're living well. So if we did a randomized control over, and it's like, what's the harm? The risk of eating a tomato is pretty small. My daughter got a rash one time when she was little, when she ate too many of them when she was 2. But other than that, I think you're pretty good. So I don't worry about nightshades, and I don't worry about lectins. I think that we have so many things to gain from eating whole plant foods. And if we just simplify things, eating locally, eating organic, that you really can't go wrong. Yes, in the back.
With regard to the oils, and I caught what you said earlier, but for traditional recipes, is there something that you would substitute instead of oil? So many recipes actually call for
I have not ever had a problem just leaving it out.
Oh, really?
So I just leave it completely out, except when it comes to baking and you need some sort of a binder.
Right.
So applesauce, prunes, bananas, even if you're in a pinch, I've used the baby food packets that I take on a bike ride that has the vegetables that are pureed. That works. Cliff product makes beets. I've squirted that in the cake. It works.
Did they discontinue that?
Not that I know of, but I'm not sure. And then flax and chia seed, that's a good binder, and substitute for the oils. But as far as breads, you don't need them. Obviously sauteing, just little bits of water, but you don't notice the taste. What happens is, I listened to I can't remember who it was, but it was some famous chef in New York, and this, actually Seth Godin took this culinary course with him, and the first thing he told him was, oil and salt are your best friends, and they're also cheating because they cover up the taste. And that's what most Americans are used to tasting. They're used to tasting oil and salt when they start to eat something, or full-on sugar. So you can take bad food. I mean, come on, Bob Evans. And you can put a lot of salt on it, and you taste salt. And or you put a lot of oil on it, and you taste the oil. We had a lady that came to the nutrition class early on, and she was eating, and she said, something's missing. Salt, yeah, that's salt, that's what it is. But we find that when you eliminate salt, you start adding other spices, so fresh herbs, and we like hot things, so we add a lot of different kind of peppers and things like that to the food, and people start to taste the vegetables, and then you start to like the vegetables. And then the vegetables actually start to taste salty because they do have salt in them. So certain vegetables are going to taste saltier than others. Yes?
What kind of advice do you have for somebody that's transitioning into a more plant-based lifestyle?
We're all on a journey. And none of us went from yesterday eating steak and oil and salt to being 100% plant-based with, So to put the pressure on somebody to be perfect is, probably asking way too much and can cause a lot of grief. And people fail. They don't want to fail. Nobody wants to fail. So we try to meet people where they are, and we try to find common ground. I always ask people when they come to my office, what did you have for dinner last? And if they, or what vegetable you like, but if they say, string beans and corn, I know that they're not vegetable eaters. That's usually, so then we know where we start, or I don't like vegetables. I can never do this. It's like, of course you like vegetables. You like potatoes? Yeah, you like potatoes. Oh, I like corn. Yeah. So we start where they are and then work your way forward. Yes?
I have 2 questions.
Certainly.
Would like to get your opinion on these new meats like Beyond Meat and
Yeah.
This is becoming very popular, and I've actually tried them, and I have to say, I thought they tasted a lot like meat.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly bleed a lot, it seems. Is that healthy for you? My second question is, what's your opinion on vitamin supplements in addition to plant-based?
So the Beyond burgers, Beyond Chicken is coming out, or Impossible. I can't keep it straight. It's Impossible Beyond. There's a Beyond Egg, and there's all this stuff, and it bleeds. And actually, the bleeding part is a genetically modified soy type of thing that kind of has slid under the FDA screen. I'm not sure how that happened, but things slide, I guess. So if you look at it, if something caused you to be sick one way, then why do we want to copy it and eat it another way? So it's great for the animals. as far as the burger tastes like, looks like. So somebody that really doesn't want to be plant-based, they're probably going to like those. And you're going to have them eat less. But they're the same amount of fat and salt. There's not cholesterol because only animals have cholesterol, so you don't have any. But the saturated fat, and you still don't get that. You have to kind of cut the cord a little bit eventually and break it, so that you like the taste of a vegetable. And there's, and it becomes a chemistry experiment. So I'd rather see people make a burger out of, mushrooms and a few walnuts or beets or, something like that. And you gotta, come on, we all know a bean burger is not gonna have the same texture as a hamburger. It just doesn't, so don't expect it to. And I think when people quit expecting something that tastes like the bad things, then all of a sudden, you like it for what it is. But I think the main thing is to remember that if it caused you to be diseased in the first place, then really do we want to mimic it so much? I had a sweet tooth that was, I ate ho-hos for breakfast through my fellowship. And I'd rather have, like if I had chocolate cake for my birthday, I saved most of it for breakfast, and that's, that was my idea of a good breakfast was, something like that. And ice cream was almost a nightly experience. I mean, like I said, the grandmother that was in the cook, she wasn't kind of, if you want pie, it's what kind of pie you had 2 or 3 to choose from. So it was just, so I had a terrible sweet tooth. And what I found out was that over time, eating more fruit, all of a sudden now my sweet sensor changed. I'm very happy with fruit, and even some fruits I only want a little bit of this fruit because it's almost too sweet. And I never thought I'd say that in my entire life. So I make my ice cream at night with banana and mango, or banana and cherries, and I'm happy as a clam. If I want chocolate, I'll put a little cacao powder in there. So it changed, your taste buds actually change. And I think once you start to, so I like fruit now, and I look at fruit as being hydrating, so my excuse to have dessert is I need to hydrate for my workout tomorrow. It's going to give me antioxidants and phytonutrients, so I'm going to recover from my, I'm going to start recovering. So I've always, but I'm really not hurting myself when I'm eating fruit. And as far as the supplements go, the only supplement we need as plant-based people is B12 because it comes from the dirt, bacteria in the dirt, and the animals eat the dirt and you eat the animals. So if you're not getting the eating animals, then you need some sort of source. Nutritional yeast has some, but it's not necessarily reliable. So we have people take a B12 supplement. You do want your B12 levels to be about 500 or more. The lower limit is 200, but especially for to actually degrade homocysteine, you need an adequate B12 level. So you should have that checked and try to stay above 500 with that. So a B12, most people 4 to 5 times a week, chewable, do well. But as for everything else, you get it in plants. The vitamin D, you get it in the sun. There's never been a study showing that taking a vitamin D supplement helps with fractures. Or decreases cancer, or decreases cardiovascular disease. It's kind of a chicken and the egg phenomenon. People that are sick have low vitamin D levels. You make them not sick, their vitamin D levels miraculously get better. People that, we live in Florida, there's nobody, it's amazing to me. I grew up in West Virginia that was cloudy most of the time. And I came down here and I would just drive looking at the sun. It's like, man, this sky is blue. You can't see any clouds, you can see everything. And it's so excited to be outside, and people seem to, they seem to be afraid of going outside. The dermatologists have done a lot better than cardiologists at making people afraid of going outside. But in reality, you have to have kind of the perfect storm to get skin cancer. It's not just the sun, it's people's nutrition. Most of the people that I see with melanomas weren't healthy. They weren't eating a plant-based diet. They didn't get a lot of vitamin C. They weren't healthy people to start with. So you have to have growth factors and things that trigger. So get your vitamin D from the sun. And, like I said, the other things come from your vegetables. Just eat color. Look at the plate. If your plate's not colorful and pretty, then, fix that. But popping the pill doesn't fix it. Yes?
Question. So I had a client come to me asking me about this Udo's oil for 3, 6, and 9. omegas.
Mhm.
So what is your feeling if somebody came to you and said, I'm not getting my 3, 6, and 9, so I'm going to do this oil. I was told 2 tablespoons is good a day. What is your take on that?
I like the first one. People come and they say, so what about the good fats? You need good fat, right? You need fat. Everybody needs fat in their diet. You have to have fat. And I always say, Jack LaLanne, pinch an inch. If you can pinch an inch, you got fat. So if you needed fat, why would you use the fat you have? Why do you have to take that? Everybody does the head bob a little bit. But we do, omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. Omega-3s decrease clotting. Omega-3s go to make things like dopamine and serotonin, so good for the brain. So we want omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-6s, the most of those go to make clotting. They are inflammatory. There's a few good things that omega-6s do, but for the most part, it's really easy to get omega-6. And these fats are polyunsaturated fats, so they're not saturated fats. It's hard to get, nothing comes 100% omega-3 or 100% omega-6 or 100% mono, so coconut oil has, mixed and olive oil is mixed. And so we have this percentages of each. But when you look at omega-3s and omega-6, they use the same enzyme to then go on to their chemical process. So if you eat a lot of omega-6s, it kind of hogs that enzyme up so that you go towards more inflammatory compounds, more clotting compounds, than more anti. So we want people to get omega-3s, but not get so many omega-6s. So it's harder to get, as plant-based people, omega-3s because they're hemp seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, greens, beans, walnuts. The rest of the nuts tend to be higher in omega-6s. So it's easy to get, so you want to get those, but you don't want to get these. So it's almost like you're cutting out, you want to try to have people cut out more omega-6s and not worry, and then the omega-3s kind of take care of themselves. So we kind of get that ratio back. But taking an oil, you're always going to, you can't fix the ratio. You know what I mean? You're getting everything. And so, and the oil, what happens when you sow an olive? Let's look at olive oil. You take this perfectly okay olive that has fiber and phytonutrients and antioxidants, and we squeeze the juice out, the oil out of it. That oil, those oils are taken up by the body immediately, and they cause inflammation and they cause vasoconstriction. So there was a great study done way back in the 80s by at the University of Maryland where they took medical students and they put a blood pressure cuff on their arm and they took a Doppler and they measured ultrasound and measured the size of the brachial artery. And then they blew up the blood pressure cuff and they had it up for 15 minutes and they released it. And then the blood goes down to the arm and the blood vessel dilates. It's called vasodilatation. The normal thing should happen. When you get increased flow, the blood vessel should dilate. Well, then they gave them a sausage egg McMuffin and they repeated the experiment. Not only did the artery not dilate, but it actually constricted. And it constricted for 3 to 6 hours. Then they repeated it with olive oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, coconut oil, chicken breast, beef. Same thing happens. So when you take in oil, you cause this vasoconstriction because there's kind of nothing to stop it, so to speak. If you chew a walnut, there's a little bit of a delay. If you chew kale, there's a little bit of a delay. But and the other thing that happens with the oils, they can be very inflammatory. So again, most of our immune system resides in our colon. And so if something hits the colon, it's you set off the cavalry as far as your microbes and the immune proteins are released. And it's not just for that day, but it's for days. So I have patients that'll have really bad arthritis, and they'll go off the wagon, when they're out traveling, and they'll get into, some oils and some, a lot of oils or dairy or whatever, but mainly the oils, and all of a sudden they'll have joint pain. They'll have joint pain for 5, 6, 7 days until everything gets settled down. So, so we really, we don't need that, the supplements, So I'm sure that would be people would like you to do it, but Yes.
I have a question. Since you brought up colon, it brought this question to mind. But we have several functional doctor friends, and it seems that the digestive health experts and the cardiovascular experts, it's almost like they're on a couple different avenues. Cardiovascular is really around the
in the plant-based world, around the no oil, and the digestive experts, it seems like it's, 50% of your calories from fat, but also more of a paleo approach. What are your thoughts on that?
There's a 30 to 40% increased risk of cancer, and mainly digestive cancers with the keto diet that's high fat. It goes all the way back to actually, there's a great YouTube, you can still pull it up, it's by Dr. Burkitt. And Burkitt's lymphoma was named after him. But he was an English doctor, spent a lot of time in sub-Saharan Africa doing missionary work. And what he noticed when he first got there was that these people eating the 70 grams of fiber a day, while he was there, he had not one case of diverticulitis, no colon cancer, no gallbladder disease, no, none of these GI cancers, no Crohn's, no colitis. And, basically attributed to the amount of fiber in an area that people take in is kind of related to the size of the doctor's cars. So the less fiber equals more expensive doctor's cars, because they do a lot more. So we know 50 to 70 grams of fiber today. If you want to make yourself colon cancer, GI cancer free, that's where to get it. But you can't get that when you're eating animal products. When you're eating 50%, you're not getting that. In nutrition class, we go through, a day of somebody's eating and look at the fiber content. So if you get up and you eat my ho-ho for breakfast, I might give you, if I eat 2, you might get, like 1 gram of fiber, right? And if you went out to lunch and you had a turkey burger and French fries, then you might get another 2 grams of fiber. The bun maybe give you 1 gram, and the tomato, and maybe 2 grams of fiber. The potato will give you, so that's now you're up to 3 grams. Then you come home and you have a pork chop, no fiber. You have some green beans, maybe 1 or 2, and a potato, 3 or 4. So those people are getting less than 10 grams of fiber a day, in and day out. And if you want to get constipated and you want to, that's one way to do it. The other thing that happens is when you're eating that kind of diet, you're selecting for what we call a bacteria in the colon that can handle decaying and dead things. You were talking earlier about your microgreens are very much alive. So as soon as they're growing there until we swallow them. But if you look at a cow, that cow was killed somewhere far away days ago, and processed and gassed and whatever to make it look pretty, and it finally makes its way to the grocery store, and it could be grass-fed, family named Bill that was taken care of no matter what. But 6 or 7 days later, when it makes it to your refrigerator, then finally makes it to the grill, and then so it's been dead and dying and decaying for a long time, although slow because there's chemicals put on it. And then another 5 or 6 days to make it through your intestinal tract. You have a lot of time to do damage to your GI tract. And even if you're eating a plant-based or mainly, and they don't, a fish-based high-oil diet, you're not getting fiber. You're not getting the nutrients. Where are you getting your antioxidants? We know that, again, to make cancer grow, to make inflammation grow, we need, or to not make it grow, we need the phytonutrients, and they come from fruits and vegetables. So if you're eating 50% fat, you got to at least eat 30% protein, because macronutrients can't be separated out, right? You can't order. I like it when you go to the restaurant now. It's a fancy restaurant. They say, "What kind of protein would you like with your dinner?" Because you can't just because nobody wants to talk about the fat associated with the steak, right? But when you get you're getting protein and fat together, it doesn't separate out. So if you eat a 50% protein, you're getting a 50% fat diet, you're at least getting 30% protein or more. So that's 70. So that leaves us 30% carbohydrates. So that means that 30% carbohydrates, well, some of it has to be potatoes and bread, right? And ice cream. So then that leaves us, 5% of the antioxidants and stuff. So how can it possibly be healthy? I find most GI doctors like the Outback and like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse because they do good conferences there.
With regards to fiber, if you blend up to vegetables, is the fiber denatured and destroyed in the smoothie process?
If it's in a blender, you still retain everything's there, but it is broken down some for you. And with regard to the nitric oxide ability to produce that, we know that that is decreased. So typically, if you chew greens, it mixes with the microbes in your tongue and the amylase, and you actually get a burst of nitric oxide. If you're drinking it, unless you're it's thick, you kind of waller it around and chew it, then you miss that and you don't get the second one. So you're still getting the nutrients that are there. You're probably getting some of the fiber broken down a little bit more, but it's certainly better than hummus. Yes.
Could you speak a little bit about the relationship of sugar to overall health, but likewise, especially in baking, you can get away from refined sugar, but a lot of times they'll put, say, I'll call them natural sugars like maple syrup, honey, things like that. But likewise, the sugars that are in fruit and how that affects the body overall relative to, say, like refined sugar.
Right. So we have refined sugar that, white sugar has some sort of bone meal. It's processed, and it's not a vegan type of process. And it's, it's dry. But now we have all these things like coconut sugar, of course, maple syrup and honey. And you can say, well, there's some minerals in these maple syrup and things, magnesium, manganese. So there's a few good things in there, but really that's not going to be the source of your magnesium and any of that stuff. Even honey, there can be some antimicrobial. Manuka honey is actually good from, New Zealand has some antifungal type properties, but really that's not what we're trying to, let's face it, we're trying to get something to be something to make sweet, right? And we know that as far as they're simple sugars, they all are. They're almost all broken down. So whether we do sugar or honey or maple syrup, it's you can use less maple syrup typically. That's kind of one reason to do it. So you can make things, you can use dates. You're getting some fiber with them, so it's better. It's not this sugar bomb hitting you. But if we look at fruits, then it's tied to antioxidants and phytonutrients, and it's a slower breakdown. We don't want to do the fruit juice. That's again, you're making things too available too quickly. What we do know as far as brain health, there's a couple different ways to get dementia. Probably more, there's a lot of ways to, but a vascular and an inflammatory component, just like everything else. And the vascular component has more to do with cholesterol and fat transport and blood vessels, small blood vessel disease in the brain. But there's also an inflammatory component between the neurons, and there's almost, they kind of call it type 3 diabetes. So that simple sugars are probably toxic to the connections between your brain cells. So if you eat a tremendous amount of simple sugars, that can, increase the inflammatory process. So again, it's better to do, if we can do whole foods and keep away from those. So the desserts, we have desserts in our cookbook. You can't have a cookbook without desserts, especially for somebody that used to ho-hos. But we try to make them as special treats as opposed to an everyday thing. To hit more of the fruits on a regular basis, to keep it that way. It was a little bit, when the cookbook first came out, our members were so supportive and sharing all the recipes, but everybody went to the dessert section. And, it's starting to show that, it's like, it's like somebody quick make something with green something.
Blueberry mango crumble.
Yeah, that's good. And I eat that for breakfast, So that's, so you want to eat, again, more of the whole foods and stay away from this simple thing. I also look at burning. One of the, if you're an endurance athlete or do any kind of events, those people, burn thousands of calories, and their claim to fame is I burn 10,000 calories so I can eat anything I want. And a lot of them do get away with a lot. There are a lot of older endurance athletes that don't eat that healthy, but again, they're burning. They don't have they do burn that stuff off pretty quickly. I'm not advocating you to take up marathoning so you can eat ho-hos, but but there is this sense of, you're burning a lot of this, because we think about disease comes from metabolic waste, the accumulation of metabolic waste over time. So if we're, exposed to more calories and more things than we need over time, we have to put them somewhere. So we put them in our cells, and they become destructive over time. So if you're not burning them off, then we have to watch what's destructive. Yes?
I wanted to get your opinion on the effects or the relevance of coffee from a cardiovascular perspective and also nutritional or anti-nutritional perspective. Coffee's obviously probably popular with many people as well as tea, but what can you say about coffee?
So the coffee bean itself has antioxidants, phytonutrients. There's some oils that release. If you have a drip coffee, you catch, when it drips through the little paper thing, that gets most of those fats. So the bean itself is okay. The caffeine part is where people start to argue. Caffeine can stimulate people that have sympathetically driven arrhythmias. So that becomes more of an individual basis on how people can handle caffeine in the coffee. Tea has some caffeine as well, but not as much. Obviously, green tea has much, much less. If you looked at the both of them, you probably get more nutrients bang for your buck from tea than coffee. But there are some, the negative on coffee is not near as bad as what people. We don't. It goes in these phases, So I would guess that coffee is right now. Now, if you're going to stick, half a cup of coconut milk in there, and 6 sugars, and the chocolate syrup, and obviously we screw it all up. But the coffee itself and the caffeine is probably not as bad as what we think. Yes.
What about stevia?
So any of the processed sugar. So if you just take the leaf and you use the leaf, probably not that bad. But if you use the processed part, then there's been some hepatotoxicity, liver toxicity associated with it. The other thing that it also plays a game with your microbes in your colon, and it makes them think that it actually causes a generation of some chemicals that make you want more calories. And it also increases the bacteria that can actually extract more calories. If you think about a cow has multiple stomachs. And the first stomach of the cow is the calories are mainly extracted by the microbes that live in that cow's stomach. In humans, our stomach, we don't have microbes in the stomach part, so we absorb our food through the natural, through our intestines, our stomach and small intestine. But in our colon, we can actually have bacteria that absorb more calories, so that you can actually get another bang for your buck. So if you're fighting your weight and you have a Diet Coke, and you can actually extract more calories than you would if you were to say have green tea or water. Yes.
Is having a glass of wine with dinner, is that healthy, or is wine bad for you? I mean, you get different stories.
Yeah, I know. And I hate it. I'm Irish and Italian, and I hate to go here. I hate this place.
Wine is not on your shopping list.
No, wine is not on that shopping list.
That was published by Al.
It should be good. It should be. The reality of it is, alcohol is a toxin. Alcohol increases the risk of breast cancer, colon cancer, digestive cancers. The debate is the strict definition would be any amount is potentially carcinogenic. There is a recommendation 2 drinks for men, 1 drink for women. You can also go back to the blue zone, which I like to quote frequently when it comes to this question, and that those people have a little glass of wine, and they're 100 years old, so hey. So the study's never been done. I've had the debate with Dr. Goldhammer and blocking on the name of his dietitian. Pardon me?
AJ?
No, she's not a dietitian.
Jeff Novak.
Jeff Novak, yeah. I got in a 3-way argument. I was the third man out on the wine issue one time. And it's like, so you have a glass of wine, it's like, so you may speed, right? You increase your risk of getting killed if you speed. If you're going to be happy and you're going to have a little glass of wine with your dinner, and you're not going to drive drunk and you're not going to overdo it, I can't. That might not be a bad trade-off for a day of life. So the short answer is, a little bit. I think. Sorry, that's my opinion. Don't tell me.
What are your thoughts on the whole bone broth collagen hype?
So if you want to get toxins, again, it's a good place to store, heavy metals in the bone marrow. That's where the toxins are. So they've seen actually a lot of lead poisoning and heavy metal poisoning in people that do the bone broth. So that's for starters. And what was that?
Collagen.
And the collagen, yeah. So we have collagen in our skin, and nobody wants a wrinkle. And so they said all the cream people and all the people eat the collagen because it's going to go right to your skin. It's impossible. It's impossible. There have been some collagen pill supplement manufacturers that say we said labeled stuff that goes to the connective tissue. But the reality of it is, when you eat collagen, it's broken down into its respective amino acids, just like any other protein or compound, and it doesn't know where to go. So the idea is to prevent wrinkles, is to have good blood flow. It's interesting, like diabetic neuropathy is not a disease of the nerve, but it's a disease of the capillaries that feed the nerve. So when you increase the blood flow to the nerves, diabetic neuropathy goes away. So why not increase the blood flow to the skin? So if you increase the blood flow to the skin by what you're eating, you're getting more nutrients, and you're going to have healthier skin. And if you can see people that went plant-based, and all of a sudden their color appears better, their skin appears better. So I think that that's not worth the. It's like an egg. An egg has a lot of great things. An egg has has protein, and it has zinc, and it has all kinds of vitamins and minerals, vitamin A, and all this kind of stuff. But it also has cholesterol and saturated fat and every other bad thing. So you have risk versus benefits. And I think that when you're looking at plants, we can get these without the risk, and so that's the way to go. Yes.
Continuing on that, which plant-based ingredients would you recommend to increase blood flow?
Greens. So kale, specifically, kale, collards, cauliflower, broccoli, collards, mustard greens, broccolini, beets, beet tops. That's just going to cause the nitric oxide release. So those are the big hitters.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. One, you mentioned before washing ingredients. If you go into some of the healthy stores, even at Publix, they have vegetable wash. I've read somewhere that just wash it, just soak it a little bit and baking soda.
Right.
And that'll pull toxins out.
The baking soda or even salt water brine, and then just rinse them.
Okay.
Salt water actually, will get rid of most of that.
Okay, and then my other part of the question was, you were talking before about olive oil and the restriction it will have on the arteries, where with walnuts or any nuts and avocados, there's a heavy concentration of olives, a heavy concentration of oil. Because it's in a whole food, it doesn't have the same reaction.
Yeah, so if you're eating olive, you're getting good with you're going to delay that immediate uptake of the oil. And it takes 45 olives to make a tablespoon of olive oil. So not too many people eat 45 olives at a sitting. Avocado. Right, so avocado has a lot of saturated fat as well. It will help you absorb those fat-soluble vitamins a little bit, but you have to watch, So most of our people, we say, can get away with a half avocado a day. But it depends. There are people that don't tolerate that much fat. They have, their livers are able to take those plant oils and turn them into cholesterol. So those people don't tolerate it. They have high triglycerides. Or if people have diabetes, they don't tolerate that amount of fat. So, that, and those people we can't. So that's why, it's not completely one size fits all. Again, go back to that athlete that is burning a lot of calories. That may be okay for them, but somebody that's very sensitive to diabetes, no.
One more part of the question. Our goal is, and if we don't restore that cholesterol, that is what we need. There is no.
Your liver's able to make it. So we need 200 milligrams of cholesterol a day. Your liver's very capable of making it. So there's nobody with a zero cholesterol level because your liver makes it. So your liver's able to take building blocks from what we eat and the fat and make the cholesterol. So we don't need to take it in. We need 200 milligrams a day, and we're able to get it in. On the other hand, when somebody eats a lot of nuts, their cholesterol may go. I've seen people just in peanuts. I think peanuts are the thing that surprised me the most. I've had people that had a cholesterol 230, 240, and all of a sudden peanuts, their cholesterol dropped to 180, 170, just like that. And because the peanuts are very, very oily, if you think of it, they seem very benign. But these nut butters, if it says butter on the end, it's butter. Yes.
There's some controversy on soy.
Mm-hmm.
It has estrogen compounds that can lead to cancer, fertility, thyroid functions. I'm looking through your cookbook, and soy is something I've stayed away from according to what's been said. But page 22 says that it actually blocks the receptors and increases the risk of estrogen-promoting tumors,
Yes.
such as breast cancer. So
Yes.
that's the first time I've ever read anything like that. And
Yes, it was a very good question. And if I could give you one take-home message today, it would be to every girl that you see, get them on soy milk.
Get them
on soy milk. Soy is a phyto. It has two estrogen-like chemicals. They're phytoestrogen, genistein and desinistein, and they actually block the estrogen receptor, so that they're estrogen-like, that they block the uptake and the growth stimulation from estrogen. So it's actually been shown that if you give a little girl starting at age 8 soy milk, then you have the most benefit of preventing breast cancer. So as adult women, we certainly, you can decrease the risk, but not near as much as if you start as a child. And as far as actually having breast cancer, especially hormone-driven, again, that is very protective as far as there's been a decrease in breast cancer recurrence in people that actually use soy products. There's a decrease in hot flashes and postmenopausal symptoms in women that do 2 soy products, 2 servings of soy a day. As far as thyroid goes, it's not been shown to interfere. It will interfere with the uptake of a like Synthroid, but anything will. So you're told to actually take the Synthroid on an empty stomach, but it will not cause a thyroid dysfunction.
where do you think that controversy comes from?
Some people postulate that actually the dairy industry kind of promoted some of that. That there's, that's this, but there's actually been a lot of data on soy and its protective of, and if you just want to look at Asian women versus American women, much lower incidence of breast cancer in Asian women that have soy on a daily basis.
Can you recommend just something for me to research, a doctor or something?
If you'll email me at jami@drdulaney.com, I will send you references.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's JAMI. Yes, sir.
Real quick, statins. You talked earlier about this earlier, like lovastatin and fenofibrate. Are they evil or are they okay to take to manage cholesterol? What's your feeling?
So statins block the production of cholesterol by the liver somewhat, and they increase the metabolism of cholesterol. That being said, it does nothing with the cholesterol that you eat. So it will lower your cholesterol based on decreasing the production of cholesterol by your liver. It also increases your risk of diabetes by about 37%. Increases your risk of muscle. I was, in a former life, a big proponent of being very aggressive with getting your cholesterol down, and the statins need to be. But the problem is, in the studies that I used to quote, there's a run-in period. So if we're going to take everybody in this room and put them on a trial for statins, we're going to give you all statins, and the people that come back to me tomorrow and say my muscles hurt or whatever, then you guys are out, you don't get to be in the study. So then we take the people that didn't have any symptoms and we put them in the study. So when we were reporting the side effects, we never looked at the people that couldn't tolerate it. And it turns out, if you start to go back, and some of the stuff that's been released after the fact, there's a lot of people in that group. So there's a lot more myalgias, there's a lot more muscle damage, there's a lot more neuropathies than is reported. If you're not going to change your diet, it does decrease your cholesterol and will decrease the incidence, especially after a heart attack, of having another heart attack. But I've not to date had anybody that I couldn't change their diet and get them where they need to be. Because when you're not eating animal products and you're not oxidizing these lipids, they become much less harmful. So even if somebody can only achieve a cholesterol of 200 on a plant-based diet, it's still much more protective than artificially getting a cholesterol of 160 on Lipitor as far as events go.
What's the best cholesterol number
You
for a
know,
woman?
People get, less than one. So if we get to less than 150, where we call people heart attack proof, Heart attack proof, there's very rare, because, and there are people that say, I had a heart attack with normal cholesterol. Those people are usually greater than 150. Those people also usually have a tremendous amount of inflammation going on from some other reason. So there's a combination. It's certainly not just cholesterol. It's cholesterol. There's, everything. We like to make things simple as humans, but nothing is just that simple. It's a combination. So there's always inflammation involved. So how much role both of them play depends on the individual. But certainly cholesterol is a marker for disease.
Okay, I'm gonna
You're gonna
take
take
the cane.
the cane? I gotta go home.
I want to say one more thing too. When I first met you, most people are interested in a white coat. I was interested in this monster walker. I know she means business athletically. But thank you so much. Let's give her a round of applause.
So I hope you enjoyed the Naples Green Scene book signing and Q&A. There are a lot of questions that people have just about every place I go. Some of the questions are similar. I'm sure you've heard the answers before, but sometimes it's nice to hear that other people have the similar questions. It's nice to get your answers reinforced. And I want to, thank you for taking time to listen. I know that some of the questions were a little bit on the low side, so thanks for sticking in if you did. Look forward to speaking with you next week. Again, stay safe. Go get our cookbook. If you're looking for some food to travel with, to recover with, go over to our page and click on the Mama Says button. You can have food delivered right to your door. If you're somebody that travels and finds it hard to stay plant-based, go on over and they'll actually send it's a big box that's a cooler box, and they'll send it to the hotel so it can be there waiting for you, that you can warm up in the microwave. So check them out. Have a great week. Stay safe. And don't forget to get your movement on.